I always played the best I could with what I had at that moment in time. Why? Because there's somebody else out there that would love to trade places with you. That
Love that.
maybe, is in the hospital, can't, sick, only has one more day to live. What are you going to do to make their life valuable?
All right, I'm here with the one and only Misty May Treanor. Misty, thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
Oh, I'm excited about this one. Misty, you are a two-time state champion. You were the setter for the Long Beach State, sorry, start over. You're a two-time state champion at Newport Harbor. You were a setter for the Long Beach State, winning the '98 NCAA championship. As the captain of the first women's NCAA volleyball team to have an undefeated season, you're a back-to-back National Player of the Year. On the AVP Pro Beach Volleyball Tour, you had a winning streak of 112 consecutive matches with Kerri, Walsh, Jennings. You're a three-time Olympic gold medalist. You are arguably the best female athlete of your generation. You're a mom, wife, coach, animal lover, and author. Misty May, again, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no problem. It's like, can I get that time back?
Misty, we're going to jump right into it. What does living an inspired life mean to you?
Living an inspired life means being able to make a difference, I think, every time you wake up, every time you wake up, you should feel inspired because you have an opportunity to do something, not everybody gets that chance. And so that's what living, I try to inspire my family. I try to inspire the neighbors when I walk out the door. Anybody I kind of come in contact with, I try to, well, nowadays you don't come in contact with anybody, but when you come in contact with people, I try to live life the best I can and spread joy so that the inspiration kind of spider webs out there. But I think living an inspired life is every time you have a chance to wake up, every time you have a chance to do something, you do it to the best of your ability.
I love that. I started this project to help inspire others through stories of accomplished people like yourself. And I've looked up to you over the years, and I'm so grateful to have this chance to talk with you. But just talk a little bit about some tools that you use to stay inspired, especially now during the COVID.
I think I get this from my dad. He's very good at brushing things off his shoulders, and maybe it's the Hawaiian in us that it's just, hey, whatever happens, happens, c'est la vie. And that's kind of how I've gone through my playing career. My life is the problem really that bad to get, emotionally, become like emotionally involved with, or is it, okay, I got to go to plan B or plan C, and how do I move on? So that's how I kind of grew up with my dad saying like, okay, if there's a problem, fix it, because things are always fixable. Now there's some things that aren't fixable, but you do the best that you can with kind of what you have. But that's how I get inspired, is just sometimes being the underdog. Like, I don't mind being the underdog.
Yeah.
I don't mind being the one behind the scenes, quiet, doing the work. And, that's inspiring to me.
Yeah.
But knowing that there's always a plan B, and being able to use the brains that we have and the abilities to make something that isn't working workable.
I love that. And I want to talk about your dad, Butch, and we'll get into that. But I also want to talk a little bit about, your book, and we'll get into this too. There it is right there. And I read it, and it's so good. And you kind of go through your whole career and talk about the details and everything. And could you just talk about where your inspiration for writing all that came from?
I'm one to not dive away from different opportunities. They say you have to get uncomfortable to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm not an author, I'm not a writer, but so for me that was uncomfortable. But when a situation or opportunity comes along, I'm the one that's going to take the risk and grab it, and go with it, because you never know when it's going to come around again.
Yeah.
And this was an opportunity to tell my story, a side of me maybe fans didn't know. And, I talk about alcoholism in there. I talk about sexual assault. I talk about the ups and downs, with playing. I talk about injuries. And I was hoping that by letting people in, that it could connect with somebody that needed that little extra push, or, hey, she's been through it, I can get over this hurdle. So I think it was just another avenue to connect with people, to see me, not the
Yeah.
player Misty, but who I am,
Yeah.
what I've had to deal with.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the book right here for everybody, and I'll leave a link to this too. But I was just really impressed reading this, and just talk a little bit about vulnerability, because I feel like vulnerability is something that we all kind of need to get better at, just expressing what we're going through, whether it's good, bad, whatever it is. But for any youth athlete who might be listening to this, just talk a little bit about vulnerability for them.
I think it's tough because everybody wants to put on a hard exterior, and for so long you're told, like, hey, if there's an issue, don't even like say anything about it, kind of wipe it off.
Right.
But if you are having problems, the problem doesn't seem as big if you let
Mm-hmm.
people in. If you
Mm,
talk about it, I feel like the problem kind of starts to dissolve. But also too, with our sport, you have teammates surrounding you. They're there to help. That's
right.
why they're teammates. It's not
Right.
volleyball is not an individual sport. So you have to be vulnerable, at some point, to allow your teammates to overstep your boundary to help you when you need help, because you're going to have to do that with them someday. They're not mind readers. And I think it is super important, if you play a team sport, if you're not feeling something that day, walk in, and you can fake it as much as you can, but that becomes a heavy load on your shoulders. It's okay to say, hey guys, I'm just a little fatigued today, but I'm going to work my best. So you always have a positive, but you just let them know. So when you're maybe not performing at what you think is your best, your teammates aren't on you, because they already know, and they're there to help. I think it's just super important.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think coaches and parents can help guide the youth, just to be vulnerable. I think the reason why I asked that, I feel like, is we're such a social media driven culture right now. We all want to look good, right? We all want to have the best photo and the best lighting and all that kind of stuff. But I think authenticity and vulnerability are two values that are undervalued right now. And I think we need more of those things.
I think so. And I've had a couple conversations with some players on the AVP, and I said, let your personality shine,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
be you, be
right,
you.
right,
So what? If you don't fit in with all the players, you don't fit in, but you have to make it work, and you're on the court. That doesn't mean you have to be the best of friends off the court, or, like the same hobbies.
right,
That's okay, but just be you and be truthful. And especially too, being vulnerable, there's with injuries. We
right,
tell, when I was coaching, I tell kids, just be honest. If your leg is hurt, let us know.
right.
One, you don't want to get hurt further, but then a lot of them are scared, oh, then that's going to take away my playing time. And it becomes the I factor
Hmm.
instead of what is better for the team, or what is better,
Yeah,
it's not,
no, yeah,
by them being vulnerable, they're actually providing more for the team than they think that they're taking away.
right, 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 right. No, that's great. I think that's super knowledgeable. Let's go back to your roots a little bit. You and I kind of we share. I'm a little younger than you, but we share growing up at Santa Monica Pier. I went to Santa Monica High School. I used to go down there every day and play and sign up and play. And I know you grew up there. I want you to talk a little bit about the Santa Monica Pier when you were young, and also kind of translate that into being a multi-sport athlete.
So it's funny. So my mom went to Samo, her whole family. So I was actually earmarked to go to Samo, but then we
Okay.
moved to Orange County in 8th grade. But we lived over by Santa Monica City. So both my parents coached at Santa Monica City. But yeah, I mean, they owned a pizza stand down at Santa Monica Pier. So I was down there all the time. I've seen the pier get wiped away by storm and rebuilt. There's a dragon um, little playground right at the base of the pier.
Yeah.
I don't know if it spouts water anymore, but I danced for Santa Monica Dance Company, and we did, like, the inaugural opening of that little park, like, dance there, but I was there every, weekend, and it was neat because as a kid, all the adults would look out for everybody's, kids, so you felt safe, and, you mentioned the signups, which is so funny because beaches aren't like that anymore, and
I
it's
know.
really sad, and I think that takes some of the joy away too. It's like everybody has their groups that they go down with, and, if you ask for a game, they look at you like you're an alien,
Mhm.
like, "You wanna join our group?" or "How good are you?" or where back in the day, it was, somebody'd go down there and nail, a sheet of paper, and you'd have to wait all day, and I think that's what made, um, me the type of player I was, because I was playing with all different types of players. I'd play with my dad. I'd play with different people. Wilt, I got to see Wilt play down there
Yeah.
all the time, and like Liz Massakayan. And so I got to play in these other games called big games. So I'm 10 years old, and it was 6-on-6, and they'd play till, um, you know, the pier lights came on, but you'd have to sign up and you'd have to wait. So you didn't want to lose because you didn't know when you were going to get called back up. But,
Mhm.
it's not like that anymore, and it's sad, and I'm very fortunate that I was able to experience that and
Yep.
experience the people that I was around. Um, but a lot of these players, they don't seem to understand that, yes, you can go and train nowadays and play, but for us, certain generation, it was you were down there at 8 in the morning and
Mhm.
you played all day until like 5, and then you were down there the next day. And this was for fun. Nobody had to tell us to go down, like, it was just for fun.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, like I said, I went to Samoa. I used to walk down right after school, and we used to play till the lights went off, like 9:30 at night, and, so I love that you have those roots there at the Santa Monica Pier. Can you talk a little bit about being a multi-sport athlete? Because I feel like that's just so rare right now. Like, everyone's
That's
being specialized so young, you know?
for sure, and you see that across the board. My husband played baseball, and he went to Mater Dei. He had to decide right away, like, is he a
Right.
baseball or football player? And I think it hurts the athletes having to choose so early. I tell a lot of the athletes, if they ask me, play as many sports as you can until you sign on that dotted line for your scholarship, because you never know when you're going to grow. Are you going to become faster? Are you going to fall out of love with it? Like, what ultimately, you know gonna is gonna happen? Are you gonna get injured? Like, nobody knows. But I think becoming a multi-sport athlete, it allowed me to adapt better and easier on the court.
Right. And you
Um,
you played soccer and track, right?
so I did soccer and track in high school, but
Yeah.
I grew up playing basketball, tennis, I swam. So I think seeing, different sports, especially soccer, and learning how to move properly, that's one of the things the athletes aren't learning, is how to move properly. Half the athletes I see, you ask them to jump and their arms are down when they're trying to go up. Like, they have no clue on how their bodies work.
Right.
And that's what all those sports, they allow you to learn different movement patterns, how to move. And
Absolutely. Could you talk about burnout for a second? Because I feel like being a multi-sport athlete really helps to not be burned out, right? Like, and I see it as a coach. I see like kids who are just grinding and trying to compete with their opponents and trying to get that scholarship, and they feel that burnout, So
between burnout and then there's that overuse element,
right,
you're doing the same movement pattern all the time. I've never heard so many young kids getting surgeries before. Um, but burnout, yeah, it's you need to give your mind a break. And that's what's so great about having the different seasons and playing different sports, even dancing, just doing something other than volleyball or the sport you're doing. It allows your brain to take a break from that sport for could be like 6 weeks, 5 weeks, or you could be doing it at the same time, but it still allows your brain to take that break.
yeah. And do you think coaches and parents should encourage that more to the kids, even if the kids are like so in love with volleyball or whatever sport there is? I want to go do this. Do you think the encouragement should be like, hey, we should, do some other things as well?
I think parents should encourage more. Now, there's a difference. I don't, if they're heading towards college, I don't know if snow skiing would probably be the best. Like, hey, let's cross train, let's go snow skiing.
Right.
But I think definitely allowing the kids or introducing them to new sports isn't a bad idea, because some of the sports in college, you're able to do both if they're not the same season. But I think that's allowing the athlete to step out of their comfort zone.
Right.
Why don't they want to try something new? Because I'm not going to be good at it, or I don't know, so what?
Right.
It doesn't have to be a club team. Go out for your track team at high school. Try a sport in high school.
Yeah.
It's just tough because some of the coaches, club and high school, regulate nowadays. So
Regulate, regulate or demand, I was going to say, yeah.
Correct, right. So my best advice for those that want to play dual sports is maybe you find a club program that understands that. It may not be the top program or maybe not the top team, but something that will allow you to do both. You're still going to enhance your product.
Right.
So that's kind of, I don't want to say a sacrifice you have to make, but so what if all your friends are going to one club and you're like, well, this club, I can do my track and my volleyball.
Yeah.
And they understand if I'm not there on meet days or, but then too, the parents have to, and the athlete has to understand that if they make a commitment to a club team and they are playing other sports, really the parents are paying for the training. They're not paying for the playing time of this athlete on the court, which is a lot of them think. So you have to understand that if the athlete, he or she, isn't going to be at all the practice, that's okay. They're getting the training. When they get the opportunity to step on the court, they step on the court. Or maybe when they're able to go a full season, maybe one season ends and they're able to be in practice more. But the athlete has to understand that there's going to be a give and take too if they do dual sport.
Yeah, for sure. Misty, let's talk a little bit about mindset. You're obviously a winner. You're an accomplished athlete. Can you give us a little glimpse of your mindset going into a practice or going into a game or a championship? Like, what's going on in your mind?
A lot of people ask me what I miss most about playing, and I think it surprised them because they're like, oh, the travel or the competing.
Mm-hmm.
The competing's nice because you do get to travel the world and you see your international friends or, friends from out of state. But I truly miss the practices. And a lot of the young athletes probably would be like, oh, I hate practice, but I love practice because you're pushing yourself beyond what you think, and your coach is pushing you beyond what you think. And then it makes the games easy. Yeah, sure, you don't want to, you win some, you lose some, but my mindset's always the same. I think I'm a little more critical though in practice because I want to make sure that I have my techniques and everything down, because I'm the one getting picked on ultimately out of Kerri, and I am the one getting picked on. So practice for me was very similar to game. I don't think you should. Now, mistakes in practice, I can probably shrug them off a little easier, or I can maybe make more mistakes in practice than I should in a game. But the only way to get better is to allow yourself to make mistakes. That's the only way you can get better. And that's what practice is for, is to make all your mistakes in practice. So either you can be corrected or you can figure out what you need to work on so that it doesn't happen in a game.
Right.
But for me, the mindset's always the same because practice, I'm preparing for that next match. I'm preparing for that next tournament.
I know you looked up to Karch quite a bit when you were growing up, and I actually had Karch on, and he was talking about productive thoughts and just organizing your mind to not allowing unproductive thoughts come in during those training sessions and definitely games. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like how to organize? What if a thought that comes into your mind that it's not really relating to your goals? How do you like let those go in those moments?
I don't know, because I understand where he's coming from. I can't say that I've ever had like unproductive thoughts. I don't know. It's weird. I can say there's been, I don't want to say like negative thoughts about the present or what's happening in that moment in time, but I've never had like just random thoughts kind of wander through, you know?
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I don't know.
No, that's cool. That means you're so uber focused. And I want to actually talk about the zone and flow in a second, but like that focus to me is a huge quality for you, but for champions, right? Like that's a champion mindset to be locked in like that.
And I talk about this with the young players. You'll know when you're locked in. It's a different feeling than you'll feel. And that's, I think, as you go through your athletic careers, I'm not a journal taker. Like I keep everything kind of here, my emotion, I will replay it, but I'll kind of take notes in my head. So like learning how to get to my optimal performance. I never used sports psychology until like I met with Kerri and we went through sports psychology for a little bit together. But nobody really talked about sports psychology, when
Yeah.
we were growing up. And I think it was like each instance is a learning kind of tool. So from the time I started playing, every day I touched the ball, there was a learning tool, and that book starts to build. So that optimal moment, how the best way I can describe it is like playing a slow motion movie. Everything around you is a blur.
Yeah. I was just going to quote you on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything around you is a blur. You hear voices, but you can't make them out.
Right.
But everything is present. Everything is picture clear in front of you, within like the few feet of you. And it just kind of runs a little slower. And your breath, you're not hyperventilating, you're not nervous, yet inside you feel like this is going to get done. There's like an ease, like a calm.
Yeah. So how do you practice that? Because I agree with you and I
I
love
think
that. But how do you do? Yeah. Like especially for the youth athlete, how do you practice that?
so. I think not ex- well, when you have to have goal, like what are your goals? You need realistic goals. You need little goals along the way. Then you need your large goal. Like I said, each kind of time you step on the court, there's a learning curve. Don't be afraid to make mistakes,
Right.
you know? And I think that's the one thing is people get so locked up in making mistakes that they get so tight and then they start to get anxious and nervous and then it compounds. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's the only way you can get better. Also, too, no, failures, I hate to say it, inevitable. Everybody fails. But do you look at it as a fail or I just fell short? I just fell short. You didn't fail. Failing's not even trying, not even getting out there.
Mm-hmm.
So right there, you're
Right.
already one step ahead of the game. You just fell short. But be excited because when you fall short, there should be that excitement of this is what I get to work on now.
Right.
I see, my shortcomings. This is what I get to work on. So I think all those things, the failures I've had, my dad would tell me too, play for those that couldn't play. And that goes back to the inspiring, I have a body. I don't want to say gift, but I'm not a mathematician. So other people have other gifts. This just happens to be my gift. The court is my canvas and I get
Mm-hmm.
to create.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it comes a little easier just because I studied the game for so long. But I always played the best I could with what I had at that moment in time. Why? Because there's somebody else out there that would love to trade places with you. That
Love that.
maybe, is in the hospital, can't, sick, only has one more day to live. What are you going to do to make their life valuable?
Mm.
You know?
I love that. That's very
So
selfless, and very thoughtful and mindful. Um, Actually, I want to carry that over to your self-talk. Self-talk to me is very important, and it kind of falls in line with this conversation of mindset. You know, what tools can you offer for anyone, and not even just the youth, like anyone, to practice self-talk? Because we're kind of having a conversation with ourselves all day long, right? You know?
I think that's the worst. So, like, if I was to take Karch's thing, the self-talk would be kind of what would get me off kilter.
What do you mean?
But just going back real fast,
Yeah.
visualization will help with that, trying to get in the zone.
Okay.
Each player should take a couple minutes before, visualize themselves going through each movement, each technique. And I learned it doing high jump, but you see yourself do it. I tell you, I've been on the court before. I visualize the play. It happens, and I'm like, whoa, this is like deja vu, you know? And you perform it the way you're supposed to. But that takes work as well. But self-talk is so important, you know, self-talk and body language. It's very easy to get down on yourself. It's very easy to say, oh, I got aced. I hope they don't serve me again, or shank that pass. And that's something you just have to learn. You know, you have to keep repeating to yourself that I'm a good passer. Okay, they got me once, but I'm a good passer. How do you turn it? Because as soon as you start to let that negative creep in, your game starts going down. And I can't tell you when you're going to hit bottom before there's a play that happens before you start on your way back up. But the sooner you can kind of nip the negative self-talk, the better you'll be.
Right.
You know, and that's the vulnerable part. Hey, teammate, if you see my head start to go, come over to me and just pump me up, or something, you know, let your teammates kind of know so they can help you get out of that funk.
Right.
But the self-talk is super important. I used it until the last day of the Olympics. Every time I go back to pass, because we get April Ross, who serves the ball hard, and a lot of these jump floaters, which I hate, you know, they're coming at you. So every time, the crowd can't hear you, so it doesn't matter how loud you talk. I'd be like, okay, ball's coming my way. Kerri, you got my middle, platform out, you know? So it's little key reminders, and your body follows what you say.
I love that. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about Coach Dane Selznik, because I actually reached out to Dane and asked him about you, and he said a couple things I just want to say, and then you can respond. He said that you were the quiet ninja, and you were the best side out player ever. You respected your opponents, created goals for yourself, and you give back to the game. How does all that resonate with you?
Well, he was one of our first coaches, so it was fun. Fancy feet Dane. He was funny. But no, that's, you know, if I want people to remember me, that's how I would want to be reflected. And so I appreciate that, especially coming from, you know, Dane, because all he's done. And then his father, Gene, I would go down to tournaments at State Beach. But I mean, being the shorter player on the court, I knew I had to be I had to be a high percentage side out. So extra time in the gym, I had to increase, you know, make sure my vertical was the same at the beginning of the tournament than it was at the end, running extra sprints, because I'm the defender back there. My goal is I don't want the ball hitting the ground. As far as quiet ninja, I would say Kerri was more of the voice and the cheerleader of the team. Remember earlier I said, you know, sometimes it's just better I just like quiet and do my work in the back, and
Yep.
that's how I operated. So everybody's going to be different. This is where as a setter too in college, you start to learn your personnel, how you can talk to people, how they there's quiet people, there's loud people, hyped up people, you know, there's all different. And so that's why it's okay to be different. You know, you can be a leader by example. You don't have to be a loud leader. And so it worked, you know, obviously, but
Yeah, for sure.
it worked. But yeah, my goal for as long as I could play was I didn't want to lose points getting served.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the easiest ways to get the ball back, is if I could have a high percentage siding out on the first ball, you know, that was my job.
Right. I play right side on the beach, and you were just inspiring to watch, just the way you you kind of created angles, obviously you could hit hard too, but you just saw these angles all the time, and very impressive, inspiring.
Well, I think a lot of people ask, because right side is obviously for right-handers is the off, off position.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you side out? And it's like, okay, well, we don't have good vision. Yeah, if I had a 45-inch vertical, I could probably take a look around before I hit the ball. But I don't have that. So you have to use your imagination. You have to learn feel. You have to start to know the boundaries of the court awareness, where, when you hit shots, and this is where practice comes in, working on all your shots. So if you were to close your eyes, that ball's in. I know it's down the line. And then 2, if you don't see the defender, don't try to play with the defender. Work the block, because once the block gets moving, then it throws the defender off. So if you can't see the defender, don't try to, hit past the block. Use the block, drive them nuts. So it's always a cat and mouse. It's fun.
Yeah. One of the things he said too that I want to mention is he said the best players are those who can get us out of trouble. Right.
So you have to, and that's what I would do, is a lot of times I would do some double days with my dad,
mm-hmm.
and we would work on all the off plays. So working on a cut shot from 10 to 15 feet off the net. Why? You might need it. Working on hitting high off the hands, working on tooling the block. You need to work on every aspect of the game, not the ones that are always in system.
Right. I want to ask. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, because I want to say a majority of the game is played out of system.
So that leads me to this question. So there's a play, I want to say in the finals of 2008 Beijing, where they went on one. It was 18 all. They went on one, and you went on to the left, and then you had a goofy foot approach on the left, went off the hands and got the kill. Could you just talk a little bit about goofy foot, regular foot? What's your take on all that? I know Karch was goofy foot, but specifically, specifically for training kids.
I mean, I wouldn't train goofy. I wouldn't train goofy footed. It's just something that would happen, so throw a couple balls, make sure that when you get off the ground, you're just trying to get off the ground and get up as fast as you can. Indoors, I never trained goofy footed. So I never really was like, oh, toss balls to me, Dad, or Dane, or Marcio, and let me hit goofy footed. It was just something that would happen.
Okay.
Just how my body moved. I know Karch was goofy footed.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, beach volleyball, your last 2 steps are the most important, I think. Your last 2 steps. So however you can get there, because you're not always going to be in the best position. So
I like that. Yeah.
I can't say that I would be like, oh, train, but it doesn't hurt to throw a couple balls if, put yourself in an awkward position. Or same with the defenders. I don't care if you're 5 foot and your partner is 6'1". Don't play defense all the time. Get up there and block. Even if you can't get over the net, you might get stuck up there. But learn the position. Why? Because it's going to make your position easier.
Right. I like that.
But yeah, as far as a goofy foot, it's just get up and attack the ball.
Okay. I like that. I want to talk about being unconditional. Part of this project for me anyway is being unconditionally inspired. I think that's the message that I'm trying to get across and practice myself. I'm not saying I'm the master at that, but I think that to me that's the goal. I reached out to Chris McGee, and I know he announced you for a long time on the AVP. Here's what he said about you, and I would love for you. I would love to hear you respond specifically about being unconditional. So he said you were focused and dialed in, and you did it with such class. It was so easy to root for you. He said you're the best side out serve receive player I have ever witnessed, regardless of gender, rain, sleet, heat, or any time zone. Talk about being unconditional with all those conditions. I remember watching you in that 2008 final. The rain was coming down. Nothing fazed you. How did that work for you, and how do you relay that on to others?
It's the training. We never took an off day. Now, as a coach, I hate to admit this. If it's
Mhm.
raining, I'm like, practice is called off. I don't want to stand in the rain. But as a
Right,
player, the only time we would really cancel practice if it was a heavy downpour because nobody wants to get sick.
right.
Or if, some of those winds in the South Bay, I mean, balls would be rolling down. If we felt it was too windy to be productive, which can happen, um, but other than that, we practice in everything. And
Yeah,
I think that's what you have to have that mindset that even on a rainy day, I can get something done. Even if it's running in the rain or, if nobody else wants to practice, you have to be in the elements. We've played in snow before,
yeah. Yeah,
so
yeah. I know that's a sport now, snow volley.
right.
Could you talk a little bit about being unconditional mentally and emotionally? Because all of us have stuff outside of the game going on, whether it's our family or politics or COVID, whatever. How do you deal with that unconditional?
I think it's just like me stepping in and working out like I am now. It's the 1 hour to dedicate to myself, or 2 hours to dedicate fully to myself.
Yeah,
So when I would go to practice, I'm taking away from my team or my teammates by bringing baggage in the gym.
right,
This is my getaway. This is 2 hours to just kind of shut the world out
right.
and then deal with my problems, after. Um, and I think a lot like the unconditional too is I'm not a poker player, but I like to say I have a poker face. So you never know if I'm winning or losing,
I
and I
like
think
that.
that's a good thing to have. So that's I think what made me a force too. And especially with the glasses, you can't read people's eyes. It's like, okay. But I think when this is your job or
Hmm.
when you're a student athlete, you have so much on your plate that really enjoy the time you have on the court and, you know, breathe in the now
Mm,
and shut the doors to the outside stuff for the 1 hour, you know?
love that. Love that. That's awesome. I know we had touched on visualization and being locked in or in the zone. I just want to go right back to that because I've been asking everyone that comes on the podcast about the flow. And I'm curious. I know we touched on it, but I'm curious from you if you think when you get in the zone, whether it's in practice or a game, is it something that you can like be aware of in that moment? Or does it just kind of go by like you said as a blur?
No, I don't say I when I know I'm in the flow, it's like even that China game when we were
Yeah.
down in London, I felt we were in the flow and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna happen." Like I
Cool.
just knew like this outcome is gonna happen the way we saw it
Cool.
happen. And it's just a matter of time, but it's gonna happen. And that's why there's that sense of ease. It's like just ride out the storm, but this is what we envisioned and how I'm feeling. I know this is gonna go our way.
Mm.
Um,
Can you practice that
and
in practice?
I think you can. And there's like little things too along the way. Like I listen to the same playlist of music, each of the Olympics because it put me in that zone. And this is where the young athletes to start to get in tune with your body and your emotions and what makes you feel a certain way. Um, I know when we saw the sports psychologist, Kerri needed to be brought down because she runs at a high, I mean, her engine, she runs at a high level. And then I'm more the calm, like Dane said, just quiet. And I need to be brought up. So there's like that even level. So for her, I know she would listen to Sade before games to kind of calm her. Plus, I think she'd think about Casey. It's like, okay, perfect, we got this in the bag. But for me, it's like I'd listen to hip hop, and I wouldn't. And again, warming up, it's like she didn't want anybody to bother her. And then if I had people come up, it's like, hey, how are I could carry on a conversation. So there was two different, ways of dealing with the stress or um, getting into the zone. Two, I tell athletes, write down what you eat too, because throughout, if you have a hamburger before game and you get on the court and you're like, oh, I feel so sluggish and I'm tired, then you have to go back. What did I do pre-game that made me feel like that?
Right.
So you start to understand how long you need warming up, what stretches work for you, what, music maybe to put on your iPod or your phone, what meals to eat before, what makes you recover fast. So there's a whole lot that I think over the lifetime of an athlete, it's always changing and evolving. But the sooner you start to take the time to really focus and learn about yourself, the sooner you'll start to figure out how to get in that zone.
I love that. I love that. I want to talk about the Olympics now. And before we talk about winning, which I want to get into, Kobe Bryant was a huge impact on me growing up. I wanted to ask you about any stories or interactions you may have had with Kobe at the Olympics.
Actually, at the Olympics, I actually found a picture that I have to get printed so I can put it on the wall. But it was devastating when you hear, not saying we were friends. I mean, everybody knows Kobe, but when you interact with people and you hear of a passing, it puts everything in perspective. And that's the one thing I try to get across to young athletes is you only have now. You're not guaranteed a tomorrow. You're not guaranteed another minute. So what can you do now?
Right.
To either make a difference, or what can you do now is a super important thing. And I think for as sad as it may be, I feel like he lives so much in the now, and his family understands that.
Yep.
And he gave so much to the sport. I mean, you see the turnout, you see how he affected everyone's life.
Right.
So I didn't have too much in it, just a hi, how are you interaction. But I know his daughter played club volleyball. I don't know if she's playing now, but she was doing club volleyball, and one of my former players at Long Beach State was her coach. And so I just,
Yeah. R.I.P. Kobe. He's there he is right there. I want to talk now about winning. And not just because you won 3 Olympics in a row, but I want to talk about the moment, because this whole idea of inspired living is that, what does that feel like, that inspiration, and how can we carry that over into our daily lives? So specifically the last one, the 2012 London Olympics, because you overcame so much getting there. We didn't really even get into the injuries and Dancing with the Stars and all that, but you got through these challenges, and you had this moment, right, like this. And can you just talk about that moment and what that felt like?
I think what it came down, Kobe had the same injury, the Achilles.
Right, that's
he
right.
was part of the Achilles club.
Right.
And one of the worst injuries I've had, because you have to learn how to walk again and run again. And not much was mentioned at the Olympics because I didn't make it a big deal. It's not a big deal, but my 80% was really my 100%. But our bodies are so wonderful that they learn to adapt. And if your brain, you can learn to adapt. And that's what's so great about volleyball, the sport. You don't have to be the fastest. You don't have to be the tallest. You just have to have it up here. You have to, it's a chess game. You have to have it upstairs. But that moment, I can see the emotion and picture, but anything, when you set a goal and it comes true, you feel accomplished, because every decision you made, everything that you did made that happen. You didn't let anything take away from it. And I think for me, the biggest thing, Kerri and I were the underdog. They didn't have us meddling because we hadn't played together for 2 years and we only won 1 tournament. So I think for us, it was like a relief. Like, we knew we could do it. Nobody else did. But because we believed in our system, our coaching, our team, that we overcame.
Yeah.
So that's I think what that emotion was we showed you,
Yeah.
So
such a cool moment. I'm gonna
yeah,
actually, I'm gonna leave a link to that moment, because it was so cool how both you guys just ran around and just were hugging people and just like all this
I think
emotion.
because it was like, this just happened to get,
Yeah,
and like I said, because not very many people knew, and then we've been through so much in our life. I mean, she had 2 kids
right,
by
right,
then, so she's trying to find her family, and it was
yeah.
something we knew we could accomplish. We just had to do it.
So great. I was very proud of you guys, but it was a great moment. I only have a couple more, and I want to respect your time, but I want to talk about injury, because for anyone listening to this who might be going through an injury or a sickness or anything, that resiliency of that champion mindset to come back. Like you mentioned Kobe, and you had that Achilles injury, but you also had other injuries. You had a abdominal injury. And I just want you to talk quickly about like the recovery process. In your book, you go through this detailed kind of like, I went to this person and that person, I got this work
Right.
and that work. Not everyone
Not everybody's gonna have access to.
right. Yeah. But I guess I wanted you to just kind of share your approach to coming back, because obviously you came back and obviously it worked.
Yeah, so I've had a couple ab injuries, the ruptured Achilles, PCL replacement and tear, and then now I'm 2 years out. I've had a knee replacement in my left knee. Um, I sprained my ankle once indoor, but nobody means to get injured, and I think it goes with that mindset. Don't be negative. Use breathing techniques, close your eyes, visualize yourself healing. And I think the main thing with injuries is don't be impatient.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone gets impatient and then you end up backsliding. Really listen to your doctors, listen to your PTs, do the exercises, and stay patient. Don't try to rush to get back out on the court. It's going to be hard, but I think that's what helped me is I wasn't rushing. I listened to what the doctors had to say. I didn't lie to them. Okay, doc, you said off the foot, and then, oh, I'm, walking around, which a lot of people do. Or, um, so you have to be honest, with your training staff, with your coaches, so they're not pushing you when you shouldn't be doing something. Everyone kind of has to be involved in the process
Mm-hmm.
to come back the fastest. But I definitely think visualization worked. Breathing, and this happened with my mom with cancer. She would visualize, the healing light kind of coming, through her body. And our brain is a powerful source of energy. And if you learn how to use it and just kind of breathe and see yourself healing, to the visualization, it also will fire your muscles. So when athletes are sitting out, go and watch practice. Because even though your mind's going, you're still, muscles are firing. You don't know they are, but you're still able to learn,
That's
you know?
huge. That's huge. Yeah. And not even just athletes, like anyone, like let's say you have a leg injury. Well, visualize yourself walking correctly, right? Is that kind of what you're
Right?
saying?
Yeah. And then, watching different sports and stuff, your brain's smart enough, it'll help you out.
Yeah, for sure.
But I definitely think staying patient is the key. Staying patient.
Staying patient and staying positive, because I actually remember you going out on Ellen, right? You came out on crutches, but you came out dancing,
There's like
right?
nothing. I mean, you get injured, there's nothing you can do, right? I mean, you're already injured.
I thought that was cool because,
So,
yeah, I just love that, because she was even asking you about it, and you were like, "Yeah, it's cool. I'll be back. I'll dance right now."
and that's what, how I try to go through life. It's like, okay, something happened. Okay, it's not the worst thing that could happen to me. Yeah, nobody wants to be injured, but life still goes on. The world still turns, you know?
Yeah,
So, um, you'll do yourself more harm if you think about the what ifs or, oh, poor
yeah,
me.
right.
So,
Last two questions. I know I just said that, but I just want to know real quick, how did it feel when you got a chance to pepper on the lawn of the White House?
oh, geez, forgot about that. It was fine. Kerri and I were like, oh, there's a ball. Okay, let's just let's just pepper, you know. Then we
I
went
love
to a
that.
concert. Then we went concert at the Garden, but I peppered there. I peppered on the Great Wall. So
That's pretty cool. You
ball
talk about that
control.
in your book.
You got to have ball control to do it because you don't want to be spraying and Secret Service guys running all over, you know.
That's pretty
So
cool. Okay, last question, Misty. Talk to me about fulfillment. You know, you achieved the peak of athletic achievement multiple times, 3 times gold, like state champion, all these accolades. What does fulfillment mean to you?
I think fulfillment means, well, when you see your hard work pay off because you put in a lot of hours. And if I can step off the court at the end of the day and say I gave it my all and I did everything I could, whether I win or lose, I should feel fulfilled because that's just the nature of sport. You're gonna have a winner and a loser. But as long as I know in my heart that I did everything I possibly could to put myself in the best situation for me or for my team, then I can be fulfilled. Fulfillment indoor, seeing my teammates get recognized for, you know, something, seeing them accomplish um, either skills they couldn't do before or accomplish, you know, we had some players that went to school for the first time, you know. So to me, that's fulfilling, helping them along their journey.
Yeah. Misty, you're so awesome. Thank you so much for making the time to do this. We had such a great conversation. I would love to do a part 2 sometime. And I was actually trying to think of a word for you, and the only word I could really come up with is inspiring. You are inspiring, and the reason why for me is not just because of all your accomplishments, but it's because of your desire to give back. You know, it really comes through in your book and just talking with you. You want to help the next generation. I think that you think that that's what it's all about, which I agree with. I think that's what it's all about too, is just passing that torch, you know? So that's inspiring to me. So thank you for that.
You have to, because my dad also said, you know, the information is only as good as we make it, you know.
Hmm.
So if I have good information, it doesn't do anybody else any good if I hold it inside. You have to be willing to share. You have to, in order for the sport to grow, you share. You
Yeah.
share ideas, you share thoughts. Coaches share ideas, share thoughts. You know,
Mm.
I think everyone can do probably a better job of that. But you have to share with that next generation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Take a moment, tell people where we can find you or learn more about you.
Oh, I don't know. Here, when I'm back again.
Well, your Instagram, right? At Misty May VB.
I do. I haven't been on that for. I've
That's
strayed from
okay.
the social media. You
No
know,
problem. No problem. I'll do.
It goes. I'm not gonna lie. It goes back with the negative. A lot of negativity.
No
You know,
worries.
negativity. So
I'm just trying to
I've
promote you.
strayed.
This is your book. Everyone should go buy this book. It's
Uh,
really good. It's really good. Great job on that.
but no, I'm around.
Thank
Just
you so
around.
much
Hopefully, you know, everybody stays healthy and the COVID starts to clear up and we can get back out on the gyms and the beaches and
yeah.
just for all the young athletes, just stay patient, you know, use this time to learn something new. Learn a different language, learn something new.
Love that.
So
Love that. Misty, thank you so much.
all right, no problem.
I'll talk
Okay.
we'll talk soon, okay?
No worries. All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
Aaron. Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
This episode is brought to you by DAF Global. If you're looking to start a podcast or you have a podcast and you're looking for editing services, hit up my guys Oliver and Garrett at DAF Global. They're awesome. They help me with this podcast and they take care of all kinds of different services like editing and audio enhancement, and they're great to work with. They're also offering a 10% discount to all Within the Game listeners. So hit my guys up at DAF Global on Instagram and also on their website, www.dafglobal.co.uk.